Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
I apologise. I was too quick off the mark there. But anyway, good evening and welcome. Before we do anything, I'd like to say a big thank you to Howard Burton. He was absolutely right. I'm so looking forward to being with you for this 2 hours. We have a wonderful programme lined up, I think. Maybe not all as happy clappy as it normally is. I'll tell you about that in just a second. Howard, thanks a million. And we look forward to your company again on Spain Today tomorrow between 6 and 7. So from now until 9 o'clock, it is live on Eire, the Irish programme, and I hope you can stay with me in the first hour at about 6:30 or thereabouts. I'm going to talk to Helen Gray. Helen is from the Clondalkin Community Choir. Clondalkin is an area in Dublin, and why am I talking to them? Why am I talking to Helen about the choir? Well, they were singing recently in the Vatican, and they were also singing in Assisi. Aye. And what's so special about that? You will have to join me at about 6:30 when I'm joined by Helen to find out about the Clondalkin Community Choir and also to find out why and how they managed to be singing in the Vatican. The second hour of the programme might be a little heavier. In fact, it is a little heavier than it normally would be, but not as heavy as the book that I talked to the author about. The author's name is Amanda Brown, and she has written a book which is called No Peace Until He's Dead. It's her story of child abuse at the hands of her stepfather, Davy Tweed, and her journey to recovery. The book was not an easy read, but it was a joy to talk to Amanda early last week. In fact, I recorded this piece with her, and you will hear that story in the second hour of the programme, all right? And I want to point out to you in advance of that if you are affected by any of the issues that are discussed in the conversation, helpline numbers and website details are available at our website, TRE.radio. If you go to the info tab and then you go to important emergency numbers in Spain, you will find helplines and websites that will help you with those issues, not just in Spain, but also in the UK and in Ireland and Northern Ireland, right? So there you go. That's what we have for you this evening. There'll be a little bit of music and there'll be plenty of news as well. So will we get things underway? As always, if you'd like to get in contact, you're more than welcome to do so. Our WhatsApp machine, the number for that is +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. Right. Simon Harris, as predicted last week when George and I were talking and taking on board all of the information that we had garnered throughout the day. Last week, if you recall, was a fairly exciting day for anybody in the media business, because out of the blue, without any warning in advance, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar announced that he was going to be stepping down as leader of the Fine Gael party and as Taoiseach. There was talks in the first 24 hours that there would be a leadership contest, and George and I went through a number of people who may or may not have thrown their hat in the ring. As it turned out, Simon Harris was deemed to be the leader of Fine Gael on Sunday because nobody challenged him. Now, if you were watching the details of it, you will know that there was a deal done with Heather Humphreys and who else? Simon Coveney decided he wasn't going to run. I gave you that information last week on the programme because it broke as we were on air. And who was the other? Pascal Donoghue had decided he wasn't going to run. So they were the four names that were in there. So he's going to be elected Taoiseach when the Dáil returns after the Easter recess, around the 9th of April, I think. There were talks that the Dáil might be recalled prior to that to elect him, but I would imagine people had made arrangements, family plans and things like that. Oh, we have an information piece coming through, and I presume that has kind of scuppered that. So there you have it. Alrighty, so Simon Harris, wish him well as the new leader of Fine Gael, and wish him well as Taoiseach if and when he is elected to that position in Dáil Éireann around the 9th of May or thereabouts. Now, something you might be interested in, or maybe somebody you know might be interested in, a vacancy was recently posted on the Irish Embassy in Madrid's website for the position of consular officer. Right, full details of the role, including the job description and application form, can be found online. If you would like that information, it's a very long-winded URL, so I'm not going to call it out. But if you'd like me to send it to you, I happily will do that. You can contact me at ger@tre.radio, and I will send it to you. Completed application forms should be sent via email only and must be received before midday Spanish time on the 2nd of April. So that's next Tuesday. So you'd want to be kind of getting your skates on. All right. Interviews are tentatively scheduled then for the morning of the 8th of April, which is next Monday week. So there you have it. And good luck to you if you're going to apply for it. Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight confirmed late last week, that Cillian Murphy will reprise his role as gangster Tommy Shelby in the forthcoming spin-off film. The Oscar-winning Cork actor led the popular 6-season British crime drama. I must say I enjoyed it. I had to start it 3 times because I kind of lost interest, and then I lost interest again, and then I stayed with it. But I haven't seen the final series as yet. Anyway, it ran from 2013 to 2022. It was announced in 2021 that instead of wrapping up the series in a 7th season, loose ends would be tied up in a movie. Speaking at a recent premiere of his new BBC drama, The Town, Knight said that Murphy is definitely returning. We're shooting it in September, just down the road in Digbeth. Murphy's return does not come as a total surprise, as he has been vocal about his interest in continuing his role in a Peaky Blinders movie if presented with a worthy script. Set in the aftermath of World War I, Peaky Blinders followed one of Birmingham's most powerful gangs at the time, led by a returning war hero, Thomas Shelby, played obviously by Cillian Murphy. The first 4 seasons aired on BBC 2 before moving to BBC 1 for its final 2. Knight was also, has always been clear about his intentions to finalise the story in a film format. He had previously suggested that the film would be released in cinemas this year, but with filming only beginning in September, he now hinted at a 2025 release date. Wish him well for that. Something that we have mentioned on occasion on the programme, and I'm going to mention it again to you. Campaigners who have warned that Ireland's largest freshwater lake is in danger because of pollution. They have met with Stormont ministers to discuss the crisis. Now, the Northern Ireland's First Minister Michelle O'Neill, Deputy First Minister Emma Little-Pengelly, and Agriculture Minister Andrew Muir attended the meeting in the County Antrim village of Toom this morning. Stormont minister said that the executive would do everything it can to address the environmental crisis at Lough Neagh. There are fears that noxious blooms, which covered large parts of the loch last summer and also affected other waterways and beaches in the region, are set to return this summer. As I said, that's an ongoing story, and it will continue for some time, I would imagine. Singer Brian Kennedy is to step away from all gigs for the coming months for health reasons, his team has announced. The announcement, which was made in a post from Kennedy's X page, said, while there's nothing sinister going on, he would be taking time to focus on his health. A native of West Belfast, the singer was set to perform at the Ashdown Park Hotel in Gorey in County Wexford this coming Friday, and venues in Cork, Monaghan and Limerick next month. In a post on Facebook, the team said that Kennedy was determined to return to his old self. Along with the break from performing, the singer will also be stepping away from social media. The team also thanked the venues for their understanding and said that the new dates will be organised where possible. The upcoming shows are now postponed, and another date will eventually be organised in time where possible, or a refund will be given to people, they said. And Gilbert O'Sullivan has said it's a lovely honour to be awarded the Freedom of Waterford, adding that it's special because I'm a local boy. speaking on RTE Radio 1's Morning Ireland this morning as he prepared to receive the award at the Council Chamber in Waterford's City Hall today. The musician joins singers Val Dunican and Brendan Boyer and actress Anna Manahan in receiving the honour. He said he was proud of his roots in Waterford. It's special because I'm a local boy. Although we left Ireland when I was 8 years old, I always loved coming back, he said. The three-time winner of the Ivor Novello Award is set to play 2 concerts in Cork's Opera House in Dublin's National Concert Hall this September, and he told Morning Ireland that an extra gig in Waterford is being lined up. I bet they're happy about that. Let's take a track from Gilbert, shall we? Haven't played him in a couple of months.
1 minute you say you will and the next you won't. 1 minute you want me and the next you don't. You're turning me upside down, giving me the run around. Don't think that I don't know, I don't think that I won't go. You watch me, it isn't out of the question. 1 minute you're kissing me and the next you're not. 1 minute you remember and the next you forgot. I don't like it one little bit, you're giving me the slip. Don't think that I don't know, I don't think that I won't go. If you want me, it's really out of the question. Between us we could have conquered Everest, sailed empty-handed around the world. But no, you couldn't wait. You had to go make the fatal mistake of leading me on. You silly girl, that was wrong. Don't think that I don't know, I don't think that I won't go. You watch me, it isn't out of the question. 1 minute you're full of life and the next you're sad. 1 minute you're marvelous and the next you're bad. I don't like it one little bit, you keep giving me the slip. Don't think that I don't know, I don't think that I won't go. If you want me, it's really out of the question. Oh, I'm doing my best and I don't know why. I'm giving her a call and there's no reply. She's getting me down till I can't get up. She's giving me hell, and if that's not enough, she's breaking my heart nearly every day. Not only in pieces, but every way. I'm sorry, of course, but the fault is hers. I'm doing my best and I don't know why. I'm giving her a call and there's no reply. She's getting me down till I can't get up. She's giving me hell, and if that's not enough, she's breaking my heart nearly every day. Not only in pieces, but every way. I'm sorry, of course, but the fault is hers. I'm doing my best and I don't know why. I'm giving her a call.
Is celebrating in County Waterford, well, in Waterford City this evening. That's Gilbert O'Sullivan. Congratulations on getting the Freeman of Waterford today. So well done. Thought we'd give it a spin for you. Out of the question is what that particular track is called. I'm going to take a very quick break. Come back to me just after that, please, if you would. Or shall I tell you what? You stay there. I'll go for the break and I'll come back to you after the break. Isn't that all right? That's even a better, Ger. That's a much better idea, Ger. Just press the button.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Oh, nice to have your company and thank you for staying exactly where you were. And I'm glad to be back with you. I'm going to just make sure that I press the right button here to do this and that and the other thing. New laws are expected to be passed to introduce congestion charges, according to the government's new draft transport strategy. Diesel rebates could be phased out, as well as other subsidies on fossil fuels, in what is likely to be a further hit to households and businesses. A draft of the new demand management strategy gives us all of this information, and motorists who drive less car share and carpool could be paying less for their car insurance every year. That's according to the new plan from the Green Party leader, Eamon Ryan. The draft strategy says the government should work with the insurance industry to encourage motorists to be more sustainable. It recommends new laws be put in place to bring in congestion charges. I think they're going to be kind of up to local authorities, and they will be very slow to bring them in rural areas, obviously. But I heard somebody earlier today saying that they will certainly be introduced at some point in the cities like Dublin, Cork and Limerick, and probably Galway as well. It recommends new laws be put in place, congestion charges, as well as giving additional powers to the National Transport Authority and local authorities so that they can be implemented. The laws would also legislate for urban road user charging, where drivers are charged on the roads that they drive and or clean air zones or low emission zones. The diesel rebate system or scheme, which gives haulage and passenger transport companies tax back on mineral oil, will also be phased out. Options should also be put in place, it suggests, for the gradual phase-out of subsidies on fossil fuels, such as previous cuts to excise duty put in place by the government. Petrol and diesel excise duties should be equalised so that people are incentivised to alternatives to fuel. A government source emphasised these recommendations will not be implemented immediately. They are part of a long-term strategy and would only be brought in when suitable alternatives are put in place. Minister Ryan brought the strategy to Cabinet today. He has previously said that congestion charges are not part of plans to discourage private car use in the busiest urban areas. Really? The new demand management strategy says all taxes and tolls which currently apply to transport should be reviewed. Other charges should also be considered, such as the congestion charges, distance-based road user charges, clean air zones and extra charges on the weight of vehicles. Government should consider the impact these charges would have on behaviour, fuel and engine choice. It's expected that the strategy will go to public consultation. Certain measures will be rolled out in urban areas first, where there is greater public transport, walking and cycling availability. The strategy comes as part of the government's investment and supports for public transport, walking, cycling and electric vehicles. There was a lot of debate about that a little earlier on today as well, on the various radio stations that I was listening to and monitoring and trying to get ahead on. New plan. Yes, indeed. The Cabinet has agreed a new comprehensive accommodation strategy for international protection applicants, which seeks to address the current shortfall in beds while reforming the system over the longer term. The reforms will see a move away from reliance on private providers and towards a core of state-owned accommodation, delivering 14,000 state-owned beds by 2028. Oh, that's a long way off. This is quadruple the previous commitment under the White Paper. It will be supplemented as required by high standard commercial providers, according to a statement issued by the Department of Integration. The aim of the strategy is to end the use of unsuitable accommodation options currently relied upon, such as the sole hotel remaining in a given town, according to the statement. Accommodation will be delivered through a multi-strand approach. This will involve use of state land for prefabricated and modular units, the conversion of commercial buildings, and the targeted purchase of medium and larger turnkey properties. There is also a plan to design and build new reception and integration centres and upgrade IPAS centres, the International Protection Applicants Centres, formerly known as Direct Provision Centres. A number of new state-owned sites have been identified, with assessments underway for use, according to the department, which intends to bring the first sites into use within months. In addition, an expression of interest for possible purchases of accommodation will issue in the coming weeks. That has only just been put together today, and I wish them well with it. Alrighty, what have we got for you now? Niamh Regan. We've played Niamh on the programme previously. Well, she's got a second track on release from her new album, Come As You Are. Now, the album isn't due to be released until May, and it's the track is called Belly. Aye. And it's coming out ahead of a UK tour, which happens and starts next Tuesday, the 2nd of April, with full band shows in Ireland promised for November. Let's take a listen.
Time is as good as my time, and you do what you want with it. Stay true to your knuckles tattoos. I can't help see the worst in it. And all the way back home, I would try and talk you round. See from my point of view, I'm just trying to help you out. Here you go, here you go, here you go. I won't talk about it with friends. Here you go, here you go, here you go. I won't bring it up again. My heart is as good as I want it to be, but I think I should do more. Never knew how to find the right words here. The more I push, the more you hate me. And all the way back home, I would try and talk you down. From the start of the song, I knew something else was wrong. Here you go, here you go, here you go. I won't talk about it with friends. Here you go, here you go, here you go. I won't bring it up again. I would wait up nights in my belly, hoping he would come home early to tell me how I should feel. I would sit up with a heart so heavy, hoping you would come home early to tell me how I could feel. I'd stand up not quite ready, like a shaky little horse on the prairie. You're always on your own. My time is as good as your time, and I'll do what I want with it.
It was released last Friday, as far as I am aware. And that is brand new from Niamh Regan, a song called Belly. Second track from her forthcoming album, Come As You Are, due out in May. If you happen to be going to see her on her UK tour, which kicks off next Tuesday, I wish you well. I hope it goes well for her and for you. And she's got 2 dates with a full band organised for November as well in Ireland. Let's do a quick break, and after that, I'm going to be talking to Helen Gray from the Clondalkin Community Choir. Don't go anywhere, please.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
This is Talk Radio Europe.
Saving on your insurance is easy with Linea Directa.
Easy? How easy?
Well, it's like riding a bike.
Oh, you mean like falling off a log?
Piece of cake.
Ah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Talking of which, have you got any of that cheesecake left? Switch and save on your insurance with Linea Directa. Maybe that's why 9 out of 10 satisfied customers recommend us. Call 919-181-130, that's 919-181-130, and get the best price for car, bike and home insurance. Conditions apply.
What is it that you love the most about living in Spain? Weather? The landscapes? The music? Sports perhaps? People? Or just daily life?
Spain Today.
If you want to get informed about the main things you're interested about in Spain.
Presented by Howard Brereton.
Join me on Spain Today, live on weekdays from 6 p.m. here on Talk Radio Europe.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
What seemed like a joke at a rehearsal one evening at the Clondalkin Community Choir turned into reality. Somebody suggested, wouldn't it be lovely if we could sing this at the Vatican? Everybody laughed, but the choir's musical director, Noel Collins, said, hang on a minute, there might be the little seed of an idea there. Now, I'm joined by Helen Gray from the Clondalkin Community Choir. Helen, lovely to talk to you. How are you?
I'm good, Jig. Thank you.
I'm delighted that you got a chance to talk to us today. And you have just, as part of the choir, returned from your trip to the Vatican and to Assisi. How was it?
It was magical, to say the least. It was above and beyond what any of us expected. I myself have been singing over 4 decades, and I've never experienced anything like it. I think from the perspective of such a young choir, probably a novice choir, from people who may never have been in a choir before, to go from naught to this in 14 months just seems unreal. It just felt unfathomable. I think from the time we got on the bus on the Friday through the 4 days until we landed back, it just felt like we were in a bit of a dream. It was a little bit surreal, but it was wonderful. It was action-packed, and it was such an amazing experience to sing in the biggest basilica on the planet, and to know that, or at least to feel that we were worthy to do that. That was an incredible emotional feeling that we all had.
All right. We'll talk further about that. But firstly, you mentioned that it's a novice choir, that it's only 14 months in existence. So tell me, please, if you would, about the choir and about its origins and where it all started.
Well, initially it started off in the North Clondalkin Library. It was the librarians that thought it might be nice just to get a few people together as a community choir, just as another avenue to allow people to express themselves and to experience a different aspect to just reading books in the library, because this library is actually very proactive. They're fantastic at putting on programs, and this was just one of their initiatives. So initially I thought they thought they were going to get a small number, but I think it was about 30 plus turned up for the first night, which was quite phenomenal, all considered. And it literally from week one, it just grew and grew. And we kind of outgrew the library very, very quickly. So we moved across the road. We now rehearse in the church across the road from the library. But what started off as, I suppose, maybe a more casual, just come and sing and just kind of, let your voice blend with others, suddenly became so much more. I think people came with low expectations, myself included, and not in a negative way. I'll explain that in a moment. But we just came with kind of the notion of, just kicking back, relaxing, and just having a bit of a laugh and a bit of a sing. And for me, particularly, it was quite poignant because I had been out of work and out of payment for some time. I had been my mother's carer, and then she had passed away. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to get back into the rat race of working like I had before. And you don't realize as an amateur singer, it's actually very expensive hobby to be an amateur singer. It costs a lot. You have a talent and you want to share it for free, but when you join a choir, the subs are quite expensive. Everything on top of that, like any transport, any music, everything above that is a handout you have to have money for. Lots of choirs also you have to travel to, so you're talking about travel expenses. And then on top of all that, a lot of them want to audition because they're looking for a certain caliber. So obviously, if you're paying to be part of it and they're putting on a show, they want to make sure that they're putting their best voices forward. So I had actually stopped singing because I couldn't justify being a choir member. My husband was the sole earner, the sole breadwinner, and with everything else that needed to be paid out, I just couldn't justify being in a choir. I felt that was a luxury too far. And that's why I turned up. So it was 5 minutes from my house. It was on my doorstep. It felt inclusive. There were no auditions, so I didn't feel pressured. And it was free. And I was like, wonderful. This is a wonderful opportunity for me to do the thing that I absolutely love and adore. And it's not going to cost me anything, so I don't have to feel guilty about it. And I think that's the crux of the Clondalkin Community Choir. I think that's what makes it different. We have evolved immensely in that year. Having a professional musician as our musical director is just wonderful. But, we do pay a small amount of fees because obviously there are running costs involved. But the difference between this choir and any other choir I've ever been in, and I've been in many, believe you me, many. I've sang with chamber choirs. I've sang with the RT Philharmonic. I've sang with Talachor Society. Lots of smaller groups, and all of them were wonderful. But what they didn't have was this sense of community. This choir, it is inclusive because everybody is welcome. It's accessible to all because it's on your doorstep, and also because it's not an exorbitant amount of money to have. And it's bringing music to people who may not necessarily been able to avail of that before for different circumstances. And that's why I absolutely love it.
Let me ask you, you mentioned that choirs are expensive to be part of. So how is it that the Clondalkin Community Choir is not as expensive as others? Is it being funded by somebody?
I think initially it's because, as I said, it started off more of, come to the library and just sing. Okay, so that was the first aspect. So there was no outlay, there was no over right? So that was the initial part. I believe from Noel's perspective, he gives us the services for free. Okay. Where other choirs, you have to pay for a musical director. Okay. So when you talk about a regular choir, it's not that they're trying to be mean or anything, but the expenses usually are that you have to pay for wherever you're going to do your rehearsing. Okay. You have to pay for the rental of that. Then you have to pay for a musical director because they're professional people. Okay. And then when it comes to putting on a concert, you have to pay for the venue, you have to pay for the musicians, you have to pay for the conductor's time, you have to pay for the soloists, you have to pay for the printing of any programs you have. So it suddenly snowballs and it becomes a very big expense for you to actually perform in front of anybody. And most choirs, because they try to at least break even, they insist that you take on some of the tickets to sell yourself. You pay for them and then you try and sell them on to friends and family. And if you don't, you've paid for them to cover the cost. So that's why they're expensive as opposed to where we are now compared to where we are now. We started off literally just meeting in a room, singing. We got the services of a wonderful musician locally that was willing to give up their time and skills for free. And then when we moved across the road, we make a small contribution because it's a church. So the overlay isn't as heavy as others. And we have had tremendous local sponsorship. We have local businesses, credit unions, lots of people rolling behind us. And we've also had huge guidance from one of the local councillors, Shane Moynihan, who's directed us as to how to avail of all of the grants that are out there.
Lovely.
And from a community perspective, being a community choir, I think we're able to access more than perhaps the other mainstream choirs would have access to.
Lovely. Tell me about the choir then, the makeup of the choir. What kinds of people do you have and what age groups are you looking at?
Well, it's quite dynamic. And again, as I said, I've been singing for a long time and I've never been in a choir such as it. We literally have from children right up to OAPs. We have men, we have women, boys, girls. The youngest is 7.
Wow.
And the oldest is Nuala and she's 88. So we literally have every type of voice you could imagine. And like I said, because it's community based, lots of people know each other anyway. They know each other because they're neighbours, they're friends, they're colleagues, they're people who work in the local amenities, shops, whatever. They pass each other on the street. So straight away, there's a different dynamic when you walk in the room. Everybody's greeting everybody. Everybody knows everybody. It already feels a bit like family. Now, from my own perspective, I'm only 5 minutes away, but I live over the bridge. So over the bridge isn't quite the same. So it took a couple of weeks for me to understand the dynamic of these people because they literally live 5 minutes from where we rehearse. They live 5 minutes from each other.
Right.
I live maybe 3 minutes longer by car. So for me, it took a while to integrate myself. But it's that wonderful sense of community and family and knowing each other. And that brings a tremendous amount of support.
All right. Who was the comedian that decided, wouldn't it be nice to sing this at the Vatican? And what were you singing at the time, or what had you just sung?
Well, I honestly don't know who the person was because we have this tendency that, once we're in rehearsal, people just shout up whatever they would like to include or if they would, want to try something different. So it was just one of those incidences. But Noel Collins, our musical director, he doesn't sit in his laurels just because we're a community choir. He challenges us. He tells us that we're capable. And initially we looked at it as if he had 10 heads. Like, no, I don't think so. But we very soon began to realize that he was right, you know? I mean, literally, I think there was hardly a person that could pick up a music score and follow it 14 months ago. Now everybody sings from music scores, you know, and it's not that you have to know how to read music. You just have to learn how to sight read. And sight read is basically just understanding what line you're on and if the next note is up higher or down lower. And, you know, if you have to take a rest for 2 notes and then you come in again, that's all it is. But it means for cleaner lines, it means that people know what's going on. They understand if a different part is singing something when they're to come in. I mean, to learn that in a year, or less than a year, in fact, is phenomenal. So as part of this kind of challenging and pushing, and we do a lot of contemporary music, but one piece that Noel brought in for us to try, and we literally did laugh, was a piece from Gladiator. And it's a piece that's called Now We Are Free. And it's a beautiful piece. And actually it doesn't have a specific language. The language in it is made up. It was made up by the composer, and it just sounds ancient and haunting. And it's only like an overlay of one voice, and the rest of it is the choir in different parts doing humming and oohs, and it would literally rise the hair on the back of your neck when you hear it put together. And when we started that, we were like, no, we're never going to master it. We're never going to master it. And as we began to see it come together and began to appreciate it and love the sound that we were able to make, that's when someone said, wow, this is something phenomenal. Imagine if we could do this in Rome. And as I said, no sooner said than it was on Noel's radar that he had to make that happen for them, and he did.
And how did it happen? Tell me the story.
Noel has a lot of contacts because of his own background. He's a lot of contacts with people who organise trips and people that are in Rome, and he spoke to as many of them as possible. He has some friends in the diocese, and he spoke to them as well. He was able to then secure, I mean, it's amazing that we were able to sing in St. Peter's. It really was. In my career, I never thought I was going to do that, you know, in my singing career. I really didn't. Suddenly he came back to us and said, look, you know, I've been talking to people. I have some friends in high places, and this is what we can do. Who's interested? And the funny thing about that is we're a choir of about 50 plus, you know, and I've never, because I've been away with choirs before, I've never seen the uptake. 49 choir members went on this trip of a choir of 50 plus. Like, that is absolutely amazing. Phenomenal. We had like a 95% uptake. I think people were just so in shock that this could actually be, that everybody wanted to experience it and everybody wanted to, you know, do it. And it was amazing.
So you got on the bus on Friday afternoon. Tell me about it. What happened from there until you got back?
Well, it was actually lovely that we actually moved en masse, which was lovely. Again, I'd never done that, but it was a better way to keep us all together. And because we have such a diversity of ages and also of physical ability, myself included, because a year ago I had a fall that I'm still trying to recover from. Even though I'm young, I never expected to have a fall like I did. So it was wonderful that they were catering to everybody's physical ability. Everybody mucked in. So when we arrived at the bus, you know, it was all hands on deck. Everybody was helping putting on the bags. Everybody was helping everybody up on the bus. You know, before we even left North Clondalkin, you know, there was a camaraderie already setting in. We arrived at the airport. We were met by our guide, lovely guide from Marion Tours, Kieran. He was our 24/7 guide. He came with us and he was with us all the time. And he just organised us into the terminal, handed us out our boarding passes and helped us do our self-check-in on bags. Really? And then for those of us who had a limited ability, they had organised to get us some support through the airport to get us to the plane. As Noel said, he needed us to conserve our energy so that we could have all of our energy for Rome. None of it was to be wasted. And then once we were on the plane, it was actually lovely. We travelled with Aer Lingus. And it was lovely that once we were all seated on the plane, we were welcomed by the pilot. So somebody had let them know that we were travelling en masse, that there was a group of 50 plus travelling to Rome to sing in the Vatican. So that was really, really special as well. We had a very pleasant flight. We arrived and everything was just as organised on the other side. We were through fairly quickly, again, organising aid for those who needed it to get us out of the airport. And once out of the airport, onto a coach, and then we were off to our hotel. So everything ran really smoothly. Everybody mucked in, and it was a lovely experience.
And when did you sing? Was it Saturday then that you went to the Vatican?
No, actually,
Okay.
It was Sunday. It was the last mass of the weekend. So it was the 5 o'clock mass. No, the 6 o'clock mass. 5 o'clock Irish time, 6 o'clock mass in the Vatican. And it was just after Vespers. So we arrived just before they finished. We were able to have a little look around at the magnificence of the Basilica itself and see some of the sights. And then we were ushered around to the back of the choir stalls. And it was cozy, to say the least, because there's some works going on in the Basilica at the moment, just under the central dome. And because we were right up in front of the I think they call it the Pope's seat or something like that. Pardon my ignorance, but it's right up at if you could imagine, if it's in a cross, we're at the tip of the cross, and that's where the choir seats are. But because there was a lot of scaffolding in the centre, it kind of felt like we were cut off a little bit, and it gave us a little bit of a sense of coziness. It didn't feel as phenomenal as it might have if we were able to see the whole of the Basilica in one go. So that was very nice. There was lots of people already seated because of Vespers, and then more came along. We all got into our places, and what I found really nice was we had such confidence. I think by the time we got there, maybe kind of working through the disbelief that this was going to happen at all, then finding ourselves there and the kind of the unrealness of that. By the time we actually got to sit in those stalls and perform, I don't believe there was hardly a nerve among us. Everybody had such confidence. They were just dying to get singing. And I thought that was lovely, that I could feel that excitement for singing as opposed to a nervousness. So there was no chance we were going to fluff it. And
good.
It was lovely. And then we had this wonderful accompanist. He was the son of Kieran, the guide. His name was Stephen, and he was only 16 years of age. Wow. And this was his first time to play in the Vatican, in St. Peter's, and he played the organ, and he played it magnificently. He's a wonderful musician, lovely guy, and so confident as well. And I had to say, under slightly strained conditions, because there was we'll call him the in-house organist. Okay, was there as well. Okay, and there was some beautiful male singers, about 5 of them, and they would do some of the plain chant, answering to the priest that was singing the mass, and they sang a few of the incidentals. And he would keep hopping onto the organ to play to bring them in. So this poor young lad Stephen had to keep moving to the edge. And I think for someone who's doing that for the very first time, that's quite disturbing. And yet he absorbed it so well and didn't let it faze him. It was wonderful. And then equally, I think at one point, it is a testament to the fact that the choir really felt prepared and comfortable. The again in-house musical director who was directing these beautiful male voices and the in-house organist, he turned around a couple of times and just motioned for the choir to join in on certain things like amen and whatever. I can't really remember now. It's a bit of a blur. But the funny thing was, we all just did what he asked, and I think standing on the sideline was a gobsmacked Noel, because he was like, oh my God, that's not something that we rehearsed. Yeah. My choir's after coming in on time, on point, in tune, Brilliant. And even to that point, the musical director in the St. Peter's, he actually, gave us like an applause and a bow, because he was equally surprised that we just reacted and did what we were supposed to do, or what he wanted us to do. So that was another wonderful testament to how comfortable we felt in that situation, that we were able to just wing it.
That's brilliant. When it was done and dusted, was there an immense sense of collective pride and individual pride?
I think initially when it was finished, we were very, very honoured that the the ambassador to the Holy See had come to see us, and she was there to greet us when we finished. And she was beckoning to us to come and have a group photograph in front of the altar, which was magnificent. And we were really, really appreciative of that. We really felt special that she had come and taken the time to come and see us. But once the photograph had been taken, I think more than pride, I think there was an emotion set in that suddenly it was like, oh my God, this is what we've just done. This is what we've just achieved. It was beyond pride, you know. I think there were a few tears shed, myself included.
Lovely.
Just the overwhelming sensation of what had been achieved. Yeah, it was more than a pride thing, but it was wonderful. And the ambassador came back to our hotel, and she had a good session talking to everybody, and it was really, really nice.
All right. Time is pushing on. I'm conscious I don't want to delay you too long, but I'm watching the clock in the studio. Tell me about Assisi, please. How did Assisi come into this whole story?
I think it was just something that Noel felt it would be nice, and it was a tour that had been done by the Marian Tours before, and they thought it would be nice for us to be able to sing it to go that distance and just to sing once almost felt like a letdown. I know that sounds silly, but when you put months and months and months into something, you want to be able to do it more than once, and that was our opportunity. It was to go somewhere else, and somewhere, you know, almost as special, to be able to perform it. And to be fair, I actually felt that the acoustics in the Basilica in Assisi were far nicer than the acoustics in Rome, in the Vatican. So it was wonderful. And we also got the opportunity, while we were in the Basilica in Assisi, to perform part of our Gladiator piece, because we had to change our itinerary somewhat to cater for I suppose those of us, you know, you're only as fast as your slowest member, so to speak. Yes. So we had to keep altering things, because some things took longer than had been anticipated because of the ability of some of choir members. So because of that, we didn't get the chance to go. We saw it on a night tour, but we didn't actually get the chance to go and visit the Colosseum, which is where we had wanted to perform this piece. But in fairness, performing it in Assisi, the acoustics was absolutely beautiful, and it sounded haunting. And people from all over the Basilica that were just visiting came to the enclave where we were actually performing, and they just stood, and all the phones came out to take photographs and to record video. It was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it was, even though all the other pieces we did, they were liturgical pieces, they had beautiful sentiment. We did a really lovely piece, which is the Irish Blessing, you know, may the road rise to meet you, which was very powerful, but none as powerful as this Gladiator piece. It just seemed to, I don't know, evoke almost like a spirit in the music. It was wonderful.
All right, Helen, listen, you've been very kind with your time. Now that you're back home, you've been together maybe for a couple of rehearsals and maybe one or two performances, because St. Patrick's weekend wasn't too far ago or too long ago. We're heading into Easter at this stage. This trip, has it bonded you? Has it brought you closer together in more of a community than you were previously, no matter how good that was then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was phenomenal. As I said, I'm over the bridge. I'm a 5-minute drive. I'm not a 5-minute walk, like most of them. So even though I am in the community, I'm part of the community, you know, just being that few minutes further out, I didn't know the people as intimately as they knew each other in most cases. And I was a little bit apprehensive because of that, going on the trip, saying, you know, how will I gel in? These people all seem to know each other. Perhaps they're all kind of in their own clique. That was absolutely not the case. People just, I mean, I was probably most of the time at the back of the queue because I was walking with the aid of a stick. And there was always somebody hung back to walk with me.
Great.
It was different people at different times. Nobody was ever left behind. I never felt left behind. I was never made feel that I was slowing the crowd down. They were always very, very supportive. They always made sure that I had everything I needed and all the support I needed. And that was the same for everybody. And do you know what? The camaraderie was just second to none. I mean, there was never a dull moment. There was never a moment, you know, even though we might stay up late and we were up early, tiredness never seemed to even get the better of us. I think we were all running on adrenaline. And I have one really, really good, it's more of a paraphrase than a quote, but one of the members actually said, I've never laughed so much in my life at 7 a.m. in the morning. And that literally depicts the whole spirit of how everyone got on. It was just phenomenal. I think personally, we got back like in the wee hours of the Tuesday into Wednesday, like midnight, half midnight. And then I had Wednesday off and I was absolutely shattered. It's probably the adrenaline just, left my body and I just took a dive. But the thing I said to my husband when he came home later that evening, I actually felt lonely. I felt lonely because I had missed having breakfast and lunch and dinner with 49 other people.
Right.
And that's how inclusive everybody was with everybody. It's just, we were on such a high I've never experienced.
All right. That was a major high and a major experience to go and sing at the Vatican and in Assisi. So where next?
Well, the funny thing is, that was the question we were asking before we even left Rome. Where next? So, there's a couple of things being thrown out there. I won't muddy the waters by saying anything just yet. But we were discussing this with Frances Collins, the ambassador to the Holy See, and she was saying, why not come back in a year's time or so and request a papal mass? So we were like, yeah, why not? Why not? So, the sky's the limit. And, we're just thinking where next we can go, because this was just so successful, so wonderful. We can't just stop at this. It has to continue.
You've spoken about the Gladiator piece and you very kindly sent me a copy of your recording, of it. So will we take a listen to it?
Sure, yes. It's absolutely beautiful.
All right. Helen Gray from the North Clondalkin Community Choir. Thank you so much for talking to us about your trip. Congratulations to all of you on what you have managed to achieve in 14 months. And we look forward to seeing you on the telly in the Vatican, maybe again in the future at a papal mass.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Isn't that lovely? Yeah, it is. And thank you to Helen. No, that recording was done. It was, pardon the expression, an amateur recording. Just somebody had recorded themselves. It wasn't obviously studio quality, or it wasn't done for a professional CD or for release or anything like that. But it gave us a sense of what it was all about. Fascinating story. Singing in the Vatican, huh? And they said it couldn't be done. Listen, I told you that there was news last week that kind of rocked the nation when Leo Varadkar resigned, unexpectedly announced that he was stepping down. Well, there was further news today that rocked us. Diageo, the makers of Guinness, their latest price increase has been described by publicans as the latest hammer blow to the trade. The cost of a pint will rise again from the 15th of April, affecting Diageo's full range, including Guinness, Hop House 13, Harp, Rockshore and Smithwick's. Non-alcoholic Guinness 00 will also rise in price for the first time since its introduction. Addy, you're hooked now, you see. So you'll pay for it. Diageo confirmed the price equates to 6 cent per pint of Guinness and 9 cent per pint of Guinness 00. A Diageo spokesperson said that the company continues to experience rising input costs across its Irish business operations. The Vintners Federation of Ireland, the VFI, which represents publicans, expressed deep concern over the impact of the move on an industry that it said was already struggling. The Federation is seeking additional government supports. The announcement by Diageo is not just disappointing, it's a critical hit to an industry on the brink, VFI Chief Executive Pat Crotty said. Publicans have been navigating a storm of rising costs, including the increase in minimum wage, additional mandatory sick days and the impending pension auto-enrollment scheme. The latest price hike is a blow that they cannot afford, he said. The VFI appealed to customers to continue to support their local pubs and understand the challenges faced by the industry. The government must come forward with some support measures for the trade, as the increased cost of doing business grant, while welcome, is not an adequate response, Mr. Crotty added. The VFI is calling for further supports to include a reduction in excise, a return to the 9% VAT rate for pubs serving food, and a reduction in employers' PRSI, pay-related social insurance. Publicans can be expected to take all these hits without meaningful support, can't be expected. He says that the Federation members know their customers are in the middle of their own cost of living crisis, so the last thing that they want to do is to increase prices. Unfortunately, Mr. Crotty said most publicans will have to pass on the increase, as it's all but impossible to absorb given the rise in labour costs and other soaring charges. He urged Diageo to commit at the very least to no further increases to the price of a pint until the end of this year. As I said, disturbing news. Broke earlier, indeed. Yes, so there you have it. I think I'm on record as talking about the price of a pint and so on. And in fairness, where I drink, I'd go and have a pint in my local hero once a week, maybe twice a week, but definitely once a week anyway, because the crack is always great. The price of the pint hasn't risen, despite the fact that there have been increases in the past, but I can't see that the price won't increase now from the 15th of April. And I'm currently only paying $4.50 for a pint of Guinness. But I imagine as of that particular date, I'm going to be looking at probably a $5. And it's that and more in other pubs locally. And it's a whole lot more in places like Dublin. And in parts of Dublin, it's just savage altogether. So there we go. That's it. Nearly done and dusted for the first hour in the programme. The second hour, I've mentioned to you already who I'm going to be talking to, and I will mention it again just after the news. But just a quick reminder to you that if you would like to pass a comment or ask a question, you're more than welcome to do either. Our WhatsApp machine is up and running, and you can send a WhatsApp message to it to +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. Of course, my own email address, Ger, G-E-R, @tre.radio, is functioning 24 hours a day. So you can always use that when I'm not on air if you'd like to do that. Looking out the window, it's still bright, which is lovely. And I'm on the west coast of Ireland. It'll be even brighter next week. Be fabulous. Right, see you after the news.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
And you welcome back. Nice to have your company. The second hour of the programme, I'm not going to dilly-dally on this because I'm anxious that I let you hear the conversation that I had with Amanda Brown. Amanda has written a book which is called No Peace Until He's Dead. It's her story of child abuse at the hands of Davy Tweed and her journey to recovery. You may recognise the name Davy Tweed. Davy was Amanda's stepfather. He was also an Ulster rugby player. He was a DUP councillor, and he was an Irish rugby international as well. I think he had 3 or 4 caps, I think Davy Tweed had. So that story you may already know of, but the book is a fascinating account. It's not an easy read, but a fascinating account of her time with Davy Tweed and her family's time and friends. And anyway, we'll hear the conversation with Amanda. And can I just say to you that if you are, when listening to it, if you are affected by any of the issues that are discussed in the conversation, helpline numbers and website details are available on our website at TRE.radio. If you go to the info tab and just that will open up a number of options and go to important emergency numbers in Spain, and you will have a whole host of charities and helplines, not just in Spain, but also when it comes to domestic abuse, child abuse, or any kind of abuse in UK or in Ireland. The numbers and details are there as well. All right. So what I'm going to do is take a quick commercial break, and I will be back to you just after that, and you will hear the conversation that I had last week with Amanda Brown, the author of No Peace Until He's Dead.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Amanda Brown was born in Belfast and she grew up in Ballymoney. She was thrust into the public eye when she took the stand to give evidence against her stepfather, Davy Tweed, former Ireland and Ulster rugby player. And her brave testimony went a long way to securing his conviction on a litany of serious sex abuse charges. She has since engaged with the Department of Justice and the Victims of Crime Commission and Victim Support Northern Ireland as part of her work advocating for other survivors of sexual abuse. She is now a qualified reflexologist and aromatherapist, and her business is registered as a safe place for victims of domestic violence. She has written a book which is titled No Peace Until He's Dead, and I'm glad to say that Amanda Brown is joining me to talk to me about that book. Amanda, it's lovely to talk to you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm not the better of having read that book, to be very honest. There is so much in that book, and I'm going to start by asking you a question, if you don't mind. Is there any justice in this world?
I don't know. I guess, some people can look at how he died and how young he was when he died and maybe see that as some karmic justice. But I certainly think in terms of sexual abuse cases and, when it comes to these sorts of issues, that the justice system doesn't seem to be fair, in terms of the impacts it has on not just the individual victim, but the wider family as well.
I had no idea how I was going to start the conversation with you as I was reading the book. And when you read a book and you enjoy it and you say, I'd like to talk to the author, it's very much different than reading the book because you're going to be talking to the author. And so I read it with a different perspective. I read it with questions in mind. I read it with, that's where I'm going to start, or this is where I'm going to start. I changed my mind so many times in relation to where I would start with your story. But your story starts at, and I can't say at the end because it's never the end, but the end of him being physically present in the world. It starts with you setting your stall out very, very clearly and very sharply to say, the title of the book is No Peace Until He's Dead. Now he's dead, and I am not very unhappy about that. And that's where it all starts. And you start to wonder, the reader starts to wonder, how badly had you been affected, or have you been affected by the evilness that you experienced as a child, as a baby, really, when this whole thing started? Because you were, 3 years old when this started?
3 to 4 whenever my mum first met him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then I read on and I get the most beautiful picture of life with you and your brother Eire and your mum and your dad together before things went wrong for your mum and your dad, your biological dad. What do you remember other than what you've written about those days?
Do you know what? I do remember a lot of fun. I have nothing but good memories of that time in my life. And yes, it was a very short period of time. So I don't have a lot of memories because I was only young. But, I remember going out to the milkman and getting the orange juice. I remember the fun and the laughs there were around the house. I just remember that safety and, it was a home. It felt like a real home.
Having written the book, does it make you feel better than when you started writing it?
Yeah, it does. I found writing it very cathartic. It was good to be able to get all of the trauma that I was still holding on to, out onto paper. I actually took my first edit of it and burnt it. So the first draft I actually took and burnt it just to release, just to help get rid of that. It was just, part of the process of healing for me.
When you were writing it, were you angry? Did you find yourself banging the keyboard, or were you crying a lot, or how was it?
No, I didn't. I think I've processed a lot of I didn't feel anger for myself until it was actually a few months before he had died. It was the first that I'd ever felt any anger for what had happened to me. I had been angry for what he had done on my mum and my sisters and other people, but not for myself. So I had already processed that anger, and I had already got myself to a place of indifference long before I'd even felt that anger. So when I was writing it, there was no anger, there were some tears and remembering some of the stuff, but it was also very good for me to remember the good times as well.
And in fairness, as I was reading through, I got to one point in the book where you described in very graphic terms what had happened, and that you'll know exactly what it is, the night that you woke up and you had to come through the living room to go to the bathroom. And I kind of made up my mind at that stage that I don't want to hear, I don't want to read any more of this. I want to skip forward to the part where she starts to get better. But the next chapter started so brightly and so brilliantly. I thought, okay, great, I'll try. And you were able to, with the book, you were able to seesaw between the tragedy, the misery, the horrendous things you were going through, and you were able to put some good times in there as well. How did you do that?
It was, for me, whenever I was writing it, I was remembering bits and pieces. So I was coming backwards and forwards and remembering good times. It helps me to balance as well, because if you're sitting too much in the negativity, it can be very heavy and can impact you even long after it has happened. So for me personally, it was good to pull some of the good memories in. I did have a fantastic editor as well who, helped me reorganize, because I had written it kind of like in chronological order of what I remembered, just to make sure I covered everything and didn't repeat myself. So she then sort of like had taken that chronological order and put it into like the order of how I had written it, backwards and forwards. Okay. So she was fantastic. We worked really well together, and she was very good at pulling out the detail in and around, what my granny's house looked like, and wee bits and pieces like that. She was good at sort of like, filling in the wee tiny gaps that I had missed. But yeah, it was, for me, it's about remembering the good and the bad, because I want to bring people along and give them a true reflection of what my life was like, and it wasn't all bad. It wasn't like I spent all day, every day, in this state of misery. There were some good moments, and they had to be remembered as well. And that was part of the healing process for me too.
Let's give listeners who haven't read the book, and by the way, they can read it, and I'll tell you, we have it available on our website, but we'll talk about that at the end. But let's just kind of talk about how this man, this monster, as you call him rightly, came into your life. Give us a kind of a brief scenario of that.
Well, my mum met him at a friend's wedding, like a wedding party, and he was so charming. She had just left her marriage had just broken down, and there she was, a single mother, very young single mother with two very small children. And this knight in shining armour galloped in and told her all the good things and all the lovely things. And, he was so charming and so nice and so sweet. And, he swept her off her feet, really.
And it wasn't long after, and you make the point in the book that, a woman that, her husband was gone to England, she had two young children, she needed this in her life, and it was very quick that she and Davy Tweed set up home with you and your younger brother at the time. Then he set about to breaking her down psychologically. And then physically, because you have to, it's known at this stage, the man has to break the woman down psychologically before physically and so on. Then you touched on it so brilliantly, and you just said that, this was very early on. You said that you thought that you were having a dream, that you could feel a weight on top of you, and you didn't have the words to explain what was happening in the dream because you were 3 or 4 years of age.
Yeah.
The situation that you explained the night you got up to go to the bathroom and had to go through the living room, was that the first time that you remember that this has happened?
Yes, that was my first clear memory. And I keep saying clear memory because the memories for me, and I'm sure it's very similar for a lot of other people, are very fragmented. And it's like when a very similar thing is happening on repeat in the same place, it's difficult to get, one clear idea from start to finish of one instant. But this was because this was slightly out of the norm. It was one clear instant from start to finish that I was able to go on whenever I went to the police, because I knew when I was speaking with the police, because of the situation that had happened with the previous court case, I knew when I was speaking to the police that I had to be very clear and very precise in the picture that I was given, and there was no room for doubt. So that was my first very clear memory.
And from then on, other things happened, and you talked about, being out playing with your friends, and you were called in because you had gone to the bathroom. You'd gone to the toilet outside, like you had seen boys do and other girls. We've all done it at a very young age. It's a fun thing to do because you don't have to run all the way home. You can do it. And another situation arose, but can you understand how amazing it is for somebody like me, who was hugely fortunate to grow up in a nice family, and to understand how you as an 8-year-old took on the responsibility to not complain, because he had told you that he would kill your mother and your brother. He had told your mother that if she did try to leave him because of the abuse, that he would ensure that her children would never be with her. All part of the coercion and all part of that. But you were able at 8 years of age to do things and not do things because you didn't want your mother upset, because that would upset him. It would lead to her being beaten, and it would probably lead to other things as well. We hear stories like that from people who have been abused down through the years. And for somebody who's not been in that, thankfully, that's an amazing ability, because 8-year-olds shouldn't have to think about things like that, but you did.
Yeah, I think reflecting on that kind of thing hits home. I have a 6-year-old. Yeah. And seeing him being able to just be free. He gets up in the morning and he is just himself. And, it's looking at him and realising that 6-year-old me couldn't do that. 6-year-old me had to get up and very tentatively walk around the house to try and pick up on what kind of mood he was in before I could do anything. Before I could even speak in the mornings, I had to try and gauge his mood. So it does hit home whenever I see my son and how he's so open and free and happy, and you can tell that he's safe here. And I can look back at my own childhood at that time and recognise that, no, I wasn't. But, when you're growing up in it and that's your life, you don't see it as any different. And, it takes people who have not experienced, any kind of trauma, who have grown up in safe, loving, secure homes, to highlight to you just how terrible, your childhood has been.
You were a tough nut, apparently, outside the house.
Yes.
I winced, I jumped when I read near the end of the book where you said that there was one thing that you and Davy Tweed had in common, is that you were both different inside the house and outside the house. And you made the comparison because it was opposite. He was a monster inside the door, and outside he was the street angel. Right? Yeah. Whereas you were so subservient, you were so careful, you were so cagey, you were so on guard inside the house, and outside you had the bravado and nobody came next line or near you. How difficult was that?
Well, partly I think because I've always been quite an assertive child, and I was, up until Davy came into my life. So it was easy enough to maintain that on the outside. But on the inside, I was just like a frightened little animal. But But it was the pretense that we were a happy, loving family, and the pretense that I was a daddy's girl. That was the hardest part to keep up. And, and I did that because I didn't want anybody to guess that there was anything happening, because I couldn't risk the potential outcome that that would have happened should anybody have guessed that there was anything untoward happening.
You talk about the last time that he physically abused you. And you were a teenager, I think a young teenager at that stage. And you were able to stand up to him from then within certain, parameters. You jumped on his back that day that he was attacking your mum. You fitted a lock to the door, and your description of how you went to the hardware store and you bought your bits and pieces. And I could imagine you fumbling away and getting it done, and the sense of satisfaction came through on the pages about how you did that. And when your mum went to a refuge with your younger siblings, you couldn't go because you were of an age where you were considered an adult. That's even though you weren't, but you stayed in the house on your own with him, and you refused to let him in. And he didn't break the door down.
No.
Did he somewhere register that I don't want to mess with her anymore? And I don't mean physically, I mean just,
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I guess there would have been an element of fear, because he probably wouldn't have known, with my mum out of the house, it might have been a case of, well, I've got nothing to lose, so I can tell on you. So I don't know whether it would have been a case of that, that kept him at bay. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. I was surprised that he didn't knock the door down. I was surprised that I didn't get trailed, over it. But, yeah.
Were you devastated when your mum wanted to go back?
I was, yeah. I was so gutted, because I thought that she was free, from all of it, and that, the rest of us were free as well. But yeah, when she said that she was going back, I was absolutely devastated.
But yet you were able to make sense of it on the pages, because you said that by going back, you were certain of what was going to happen, bad and all as it was, but by staying, you were uncertain of the future.
Yeah. It's that not knowing, it's that kind of not knowing what is ahead. And, I think a lot of people do this, and I think this is why a lot of people go back into these relationships as well. It's because, it is the familiar. As much as you know how bad it is, there's always that fear that things will be much worse, because they tell you that things are going to be much worse without them. So, it's that... I guess it's kind of, you get some comfort in what you know. It's that better the devil you know kind of
yes, I get you.
Notion.
And again, that comes back to the abuse and how it's all kept alive, so to speak. Have things changed in 2024 in relation to domestic abuse and how the police would look at it? Because you recount numerous occasions where the police would come to your house and your mother would be there with blood all over her, and they'd say it's a domestic and nothing we can do, and off they pop.
Yeah.
Have things changed?
Well, yes, things have changed in terms of the police. The police can go ahead now and they can file if they feel they have enough evidence, even without the witness, making a formal statement or standing in court. They can still go ahead. And there have been incidences where people have been charged without the input of the victim. So things have changed in that regard. People are more aware of it. But, I still think that we do have a long way to go still in relation to it.
Interesting, the dynamic between Davy Tweed and his family. They never believed it for a second, the siblings, but his parents saw it.
I wouldn't say that they didn't believe it.
Oh, okay.
I would say that they were just saving face, and standing by him. I don't for a second think that they are not aware of exactly who and what he is. But, that their decision was to stand by him, and that's for them to work through.
You talked about an occasion where you were at your granny and granddad Tweed's house, and your mother arrived, and you could tell that she had had a beating, and it turns out that earlier en route to that particular house, he had brought her to a wasteland and told her this is where he's going to bury her after he killed her. And he went on to further abuse her in front of his parents.
Yep.
Did they ever address that with any of you, that they allowed this to happen?
No, they didn't. They completely turned their backs on all of us whenever we had gone to the police.
Incredible. Your own situation, you had a long-term boyfriend that you met at school, Gavin, and you went on to marry Gavin.
Yep.
Okay, you describe what happened in the book, but how does one who is abused so badly in the home go on to have any kind of a relationship with a man?
For me, I was for a very long time able to compartmentalize what had happened to me. For me, it was kind of all, and I think I talk about it in the book as well, because I have called it Pandora's box quite frequently. So it's like all these memories and all your emotions are suppressed and put into this wee box. And I have been able to detach myself emotionally from what has happened. So it wasn't until that box was kind of prized open that I couldn't keep it. And that's what then sort of led to the breakdown of that marriage. And like, well, in the book, I talk about suicide as well. And
yeah, talk to me about that, because you had come to the point where you just didn't want to live anymore. You wanted out. You wanted out of everywhere and out of everybody's lives. And you had a mission, and you set about to put distance between you and everybody so that they wouldn't be upset, I would imagine, when you're gone. And it was the tragedy within the family where your Auntie Susan took her own life about a week before you had planned to take yours. And you say that you were angry with her because she scuppered your plans. And you talk about the difficulty that you had at the funeral of keeping it together, trying not to show your anger, trying to support the family. But without that incident, you wouldn't be here today. And you've said that in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is true. Without that incident. And it was seeing the impact that it had on my mum and my sisters, the impact of her death on them, because her death was also suicide, that I then couldn't do that, to them. I couldn't put them through that. So it was that, and that alone is the only reason why I am still here today. And, as much as, yes, I was very angry at the time and quite upset at the time. And, some people might say selfishly, but, I was at a point in time where I just could not bear to live with all of the trauma anymore. The weight of the guilt, the memories, all the pain and hurt and emotion that came from years and years of suppressing it was all to the surface at one go, and I just couldn't.
Yep, that was it.
Deal with it anymore. There were days after that. There were days that I just got through the day hour by hour.
When I got the book initially and I read it, and the notes on it said you talk about how you put your life back together again. I had actually naively assumed that you had done that with the aid of a team of expert psychologists and psychotherapists and maybe medication at the early stages. But you didn't. You did it yourself. You did it by locking yourself into your aunt's spare room where you lived. And you, as you say, you lived every hour by hour. Mm-hmm. And then you started coming to the realization that the sun is shining outside. Maybe I should go out. You kept a job down. You finished with, I know your marriage was over at that stage. You met another man, and I must say that when you talked about Mark, having met him and spoke to him, you thought very early on, I'm going to get this out of the way. You have already decided to go to court and to tell your story. And you say to him, this is what I'm going to do. And I was looking, I was saying, please, please, please say the right thing. Please say the right thing. And he said, I'm with you. I will do anything to help you. And he hugged you, whatever. I thought, yes, this is it. Your court date was set back. That nearly devastated you completely, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I had a breakdown on the bus on the way to work on the day that I should have been going to court, and I just had a complete mental breakdown over it. I think it was just the emotion of it all, and then that feeling kind of let down, and because I had this date in mind and it was coming and I was preparing myself for it, and then for it just to be pulled from under my feet, to not know when that date was going to be again, I just completely broke down over it.
I'm skipping ahead, obviously, because you've written the book. I don't want to get into just following the book chronologically. Let listeners who buy the book, let them find out how the court date came about and so on and so forth. That also showed the crack in that relationship with Mark, because you were so devastated by it. He realized he couldn't handle what was going on in your life, and even asked you to move out of the house and go and live with your mum back in Ballymoney. And he, knowing that you didn't even want to see a signpost for Ballymoney because of what it reminded you of and what was there and the memories that were there. Talk to me about, if you would, your treatment. And I watched you earlier on because we're on Zoom, and you spoke about the witness, and you did the air quotes, and you made it very clear in the book that you are very much against the idea that as the victim of the abuse, that you were called a witness. There's a difference, you say, between a witness and a victim. Explain that to me.
Well, yeah. Whenever I was called as a witness to the Crown, I was very taken back by it, because I was like, I'm not a witness, I'm the victim here. And it kind of felt to me as if I was being minimised, to a witness. I wasn't a bystander who'd seen this thing happening. I wasn't a third party. I was the person that this was happening to. So the whole language around it, I found very off-putting, and like it really made me feel as if I was somehow minimised and not important.
Tell me about your treatment at the hands of the defence barrister when you were in court.
It was horrendous. I felt as if I was being interrogated. He really did go in hard. He was very aggressive in the way he approached his questioning. And I understand that he has a job to do. So I don't have any personal issue against him. However, there was a point in time when he was questioning me that I realised that he believed me. Which led me to the conclusion that he was being so aggressive in his questioning, because he did actually believe that I was lying when he went into this, that he believed that Davy was an innocent man when he came into this. So it was the point in time that I could see that he believed me, that he realised I was telling the truth. And you could almost then see a fury behind his eyes, but I knew it wasn't for me.
It was for his client.
I knew he was, he was, and the hope, but even whenever they know that they're defending somebody who is guilty, they are still quite aggressive in their approach in terms of their line of questioning. They have a job to do, but I just think, because I am quite I'm quite a stoic person. And I was in court as well, that I was able to handle him. And it just made me think of people who maybe aren't, in that place mentally or emotionally, that they can handle that sort of thing, and how absolutely terrifying and awful it must feel for them to experience that.
Your sister Lorraine experienced that and wasn't able to handle it as well as you. So it really, for me, it showed me, and I'm sure you've thought about this, I hope you have, the amount of strength that you must have, the steely determination that you have within you to do as well as you did in the face of what was happening. But your barrister, before I go on in that, can I just say it's Joe was the man I was referring to, not Mark. I think I called him Mark. Sorry. And Mark has been absolutely fantastic to you.
He has, yes.
So my apologies. It was Joe was the second man that we were talking about. Your barrister, Rick, told you the truth is easy.
Yeah.
And those words got you through the whole thing, because every time that you were pressed about something that you had said in your statement, you were able to reflect on that. The truth is easy. And if I just tell the truth, then nobody can catch me out. I can just do what I'm doing. How essential was it to have that to cling on to those words?
Those words are what got me through that entire court case. You know, it was just that simple phrase are what got me through that entire court case. They are words that grounded me while I was standing in the box being interrogated. And, you know, the defence barrister questioned me, asked me the same questions over and over, but in different ways. And he got the same answer every time. And, you know, that was me holding on to that. The truth is easy. So it didn't matter what way he asked me the question or what way he tried to, angle it. He got the same response every single time. And I think that was what led him to that belief that, we were actually telling the truth. But yeah, the truth is easy is actually, whenever I first started writing the book, is what the title of the book was going to be.
Okay.
But it wasn't until I had finished that, on reflection, I was like, well, the truth's not that easy, because I have lost an awful lot, standing in my truth. I had to leave my hometown. I lost my job. Well, yeah, I have lost jobs. I've left jobs because of it. I have lost friends. I left my husband as well, my first husband, because of standing in my truth. And I had to leave people behind who weren't prepared to come along with me. And that is just the way it was. So the truth in itself, it's not easy, but it is from the point of view of when someone's talking to you about the truth of your experiences, then yes, it's easy to recount.
We must point out that this time that you're talking about being in court, Davy Tweed had previously been in court because two of your friends had been abused and had accused him of being abusive. Those charges were thrown out and he was found not guilty. And that really set in train what happened in your situation. But at one point you said there was something like 8 girls had been abused by Davy Tweed. And the book is dedicated to Gemma, a cousin of yours. And Gemma was one of his victims as well, but she didn't make it out.
No, she didn't. Just to think that her, the overall situation of the court case, I had thought that perhaps it would have been a situation where, everybody's seen that it was a win for us all. But I think just the circumstances, because she had spoken with the police and, her memories were still very fragmented and they had told her that what she had wasn't enough evidence. And I think she came away from that feeling like she wasn't believed. And that had a huge impact on her. And yeah, just, she struggled massively with what happened to her. Like we all have, we all have struggled massively with what has happened to us. I think every single one of us has been at a point in time suicidal as a result of it. And it's just unfortunate that Gemma wasn't saved in the way that some of the rest of us have been.
He was out of jail after, 3 years or something like that?
4 years. He was 2 weeks off coming out whenever the appeal was heard.
And you knew nothing about the appeal.
No.
How can that happen?
I have no idea. Administrative error,
right.
That we should have been informed of it. I don't know who is at fault there, but we should have been informed of the fact that he had an appeal in, and secondly, when his appeal was being heard.
He was rugby player, excuse me, with Ulster. He also had, 4 caps for Ireland. He was a DUP councillor.
Yep.
He used to stand outside Catholic Church and call priests paedophiles. Incredible. And you say in the book that he was given 8 years as he's sentenced, but it was reduced to 4 to serve 4, given 8 to serve 4. And you make the point that physically you were not afraid anymore. But then you started to hear stories about how he was being looked after inside in prison, and how, people were believing that he was innocent and that you had done this to him to get back because he was abusing your mother. He was, beating your mother. And then you got afraid that the UVF were involved.
Yeah, well, he would threaten quite frequently with paramilitaries, so he would. And, I don't know if he was actually affiliated with any of them. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure. He had like a DIY UVF tattoo on his leg. So I don't know if he was affiliated with any paramilitary organisation, but he did certainly threaten quite frequently, both my mother and the rest of us. I was frightened and concerned that he would send somebody after me.
Mm-hmm. And that really took a toll on you, because you literally, you hid away again, didn't you? It all came back to you. You said that, the free adult that you had become, then you reverted back to the child in prison again.
Yeah, I was like, I had very severe panic attacks at that time as well. And, just real bad anxiety about being outside of the house. The only time I felt safe was whenever I was in the house, even going to work or being in work, going to the supermarket. I just, all of it had such an emotional toll on me.
COVID was a watershed moment for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly you. You had your own house. You had a baby at that stage. A work colleague was living with you, so you were working from home as well, and you had distractions. But you also started doing an online course.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I done a couple of online courses, actually. I done some mental health courses, and I had done courses as well on safe places. So there was courses around domestic abuse, domestic violence. There was children's mental health, children's mindfulness. So I'd done a variety of courses, and I had completed a mental health first aid course as well. But it was whenever we had started transitioning back to the office, although the courses were all done online, it was the onus domestic abuse training that I had done, and it was facilitated through work. Initially. So I had done the training through them to become a safe colleague, a trusted colleague in work. And then whenever I set up my own business here in the reflexology and aromatherapy and massage, I contacted ONUS then again to make sure that I could be registered here, that my business could be registered as a safe place for domestic violence.
How involved are you now with people that might be experiencing domestic abuse?
Well, I'm not actively seeking them out, but I'm here, and I've got the posters up all over my room so that when somebody comes in, any of my clients come in, and some of them do disclose, and I'll pass on the relevant, I'm not a trained counsellor, so I'm not here to counsel anybody, but I will signpost, and I'll give them the phone numbers of the relevant agencies that will be able to provide them with support and help. But they're also aware that because this is a safe place and because of my business and the way it's set up, is you're coming here for at least an hour, for most people to get a treatment. But within that hour, you don't necessarily have to have a treatment. Within that hour, we could be sitting, I could be sitting with someone helping them with the right agencies on board to help create a plan for them to get out of the situation that they're in. So, I as I say, I have had a couple of my clients have disclosed and, I've signposted them, and, even if they want to make the phone calls whenever they're here, they can. But, I think it's very important that we have these, safe spaces everywhere.
You don't believe the phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger?
No, I don't believe what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I believe that, I often think about, and I say, reflecting on my son and what you had said earlier on about, growing up in a safe, loving, stable home. And I often think about how my life could have been if it wasn't, marred by abuse and, domestic violence. And I think about that little person that I was all those years ago, and how determined and strong-willed and assertive that she was then. And I think about how, where she would have been at right now if she had grown up in the right environment. I think that, and I don't like it when people tell me you are who you are today because of what you experienced. And it's like, no, I am here and I am who I am in spite of what I experienced. This man tried to destroy every life that he had, in his hands. He tried to absolutely smash us to pieces, and he failed. But no, I don't believe that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It certainly gives you some unhealthy coping mechanisms and a very dark sense of humour.
It does, I would imagine. When you spoke to Hugh Jordan after Tweed was killed in the motorcycle accident, was that, in your mind, was that the first time that the general public believed your story about Davy Tweed?
No, I think whenever people seen the first court case and then they seen the second court case, I think there were a lot of people then who believed, although they didn't know who the victims were. So whenever I spoke out, probably the fact that there was a face behind the name, that it was no longer victim whatever, it was here I am and I am his stepdaughter and these are my experiences. So I think, then it kind of just, I think it brought it home to some people a lot more. But I have to say, I was expecting the majority of the country to be against me whenever I spoke out, but I was overwhelmed by the amount of support and well wishes that were received for, me and my family after speaking out.
You mentioned that writing the book was cathartic in many ways, I would imagine. And was that the reason you wrote it, or did you just feel the story needed to be out there? In your words.
I had always thought, from I was in my early 20s reading Dave Pelzer books, I always thought that I would write my own book. But I always thought when I write my own book, it was for my own benefit. It was just for me, that nobody else would see it. And it was actually Hugh Jordan who encouraged me to write it because of the feedback that came from speaking about my story, with him initially, and the amount of people that it helped. Like Nexus and Women's Aid rang some of the radio stations to tell them that they had such an uptick in the number of phone calls they were receiving of people seeking help off the back of what they had heard. So when it came to publishing it, it was about other victims being able to read this, see themselves in the pages of this book and understand that there is help there for them, and also that there is a path to the other side.
No matter how difficult that path is, but at least there is a path there. Let me ask you, we've spoken about your mum a lot in this. How is she now?
Mum's good. So she is good. She still carries an awful lot of guilt, so she does. But on the whole, she's good. She's with a good, supportive, loving partner as well.
Oh, that's lovely. That's good. And she's had a good life since she got rid of him, obviously.
She has, yes.
Indeed.
She has, yes.
That's lovely to hear. What would be your advice, Amanda, to anybody that's experiencing any kind of abuse domestically or other places?
It's a difficult one because it's easy enough when you're outside to say, just tell someone. When you're stuck in the middle of that, it is really not easy to tell someone. And I'm not here to say to anybody that you have to go the legal route, you have to tell the police. But I would recommend it seeking out help. You can speak with counsellors or various other support agencies without having to disclose to the world, because I understand how difficult it can be to speak out, but also how difficult it is whenever you're not sure who's going to stand by and support you.
All right. How are you now?
I'm good. I am good. Life's pretty good for me now, yeah.
Good.
I still have days where I struggle. I still have days where I'll lie on the sofa and pull a blanket over my head. But, on the whole, life is good. It's a lot more peaceful now.
I would imagine it is. Is there another book in you to do about something else?
I don't know. I've always thought about, because I think there needs to be a lot of change in and around what happens with relationship and sex education in school, particularly relationship education. So I have in the back of my mind considered writing some educational, safe relationship type books that could work for, the younger nursery school children right the way up to, 16, 17-year-olds. So, yeah, maybe.
And your sisters all doing well?
Yes, they are. They're all doing really, really well. So they are. We're all at different stages of our healing journeys, but, generally we've all been able to now sort of like draw a line under this and start properly healing.
You mentioned that, we talked about it, your differentiation between a witness and a victim going to court. Do you like to be described as a victim or a survivor?
I went through a phase in my life where I absolutely hated the word victim. I just completely rejected it. I really hated it. And I think whenever I was rejecting it was probably whenever I was most within my victimhood. Now I would like to change the narrative on what society perceives a victim to be. Just like what society perceives an abuser to be. Like, an abuser can be a charismatic, charming pillar of the society. And, and a victim can also be a strong, assertive, successful person too. So, I'm happy to own the title of victim. But, generally with whatever fits anyone's idea of where they see themselves. But I would like to change, society's views and outlooks on how they perceive victims to be.
The name of the book is No Peace Until He's Dead. It's written by Amanda Brown. Our listeners can get their hands on it on our virtual bookstore on our website, which is TRE.radio. Amanda, your book was for me a difficult read. Hard to believe that a man could do that. But I've heard it before. I've known cases of it. I've known people who have done it. But when you see it in black and white and you look at it, it's very difficult. And I had no idea how I was going to approach this conversation with you, but I'm glad we got there. And you've heard the expression before that not all heroes wear capes, and I think you're in that category.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really do. Isn't that just beautiful? It's from David Murphy. It's called City Nagamon, and it is from a new album to be released on the 19th of April called Cuina Glynn. Explorations in Irish music for pedal steel guitar. 19th of April it's been released. Thank you to PJ Curtis for flagging that to me and pointing me in its direction. I thought very apt to play it as we finished the interview with Amanda. No peace until he's dead. And as I mentioned beforehand, if you've been affected by any of the issues discussed in the conversation, helpline numbers and website addresses are available on our website at TRE.radio. Go to the info tab and then information. There's important emergency numbers in Spain, but they also have some UK and Irish numbers in there. Thank you to Julie for facilitating that. Thank you to Amanda, and thank you to our guest in the first hour of the programme, Helen Gray from the Clondalkin Community Choir. Thank you, as always, to our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor, Antonio Sierra, for his contribution to the programme on a daily basis, not a weekly basis, but a daily basis. And that's it. Done and dusted. I wish you a very happy Easter, because I won't be with you before then. Look forward to your company next week. And from me, Ger Sweeney, until then, thanks for listening. Bye-bye now.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.